Hi class, my name is Mickey Larkowski and I'm going to be your instructor for the critical thinking course. I'm posting this video partially because we get to know each other a little bit. I always like to include some interactions as much as I can. But more importantly for your benefit in your grade, we're going to be going over kind of a little bit of the nuts and bolts of the course, but also where some of the pitfalls are, what my interactions will be, and the like. And so overall, we're just trying to position you with this video for a successful course. Now, the first thing I want to point out is this is a 10-week fully remote course. Let that sink in for a second because you should know what you're getting into. So first of all, the fact that it is 10 weeks means it's accelerated. You're doing time and a half. And the traditional quote-unquote college rule of threes is that you're supposed to put 3 hours outside of work studying for every 1 hour in class. So a normal class, you're in the classroom 3 hours a week, which means you're putting 9 hours a week outside of it. That's just for a normal class. You're talking 12 hours a week. This is why a 12-hour credit load is full-time. But if we do time and a half, you're talking up to 18 hours per week. Now, of course, there's some wiggle room. You could get that number down some since this is an intro course, introductory level, but also is the fact that it's an average, which means, say, at exam time, you'll probably be spending more time than you would otherwise. But just in general, know that that's what you signed up for. If that scares you, well, that's okay. You can always take the 15-week course on main campus in person. Love to see you there, but just be advised this is an accelerated course. But the second component is the fact that this is online, fully remote, asynchronous, means that there's a lot more personal responsibility on your part. And so things like making very, very sure you read all instructions carefully, meet all deadlines, because I'm not always there to remind you at the start of class like you might in a normal semester. And so just be advised, those are two things you could expect in the course. Thing one, it's an accelerated rate, so prepare yourselves. Thing two, there's a lot more independence involved in fully remote asynchronous courses. And so because of the latter especially, I wanted to talk a little bit about what my interactions will be in the course. This is a front-loaded course, which is to say a lot of my work goes into play before the semester even starts. So one thing you'll get a lot of is videos like this, where I will give a summary lecture on the material. These don't tend to be huge, long videos, as long as a class lecture, because first of all, there's not interaction with the students, and so you can say things a little more quickly, but also because it's recorded, you can do things like pause, stop, rewind, rewatch, etc. And so as a result, I tend to present information a little more quickly, with the assumption that you as a student are doing your job and watching them attentively, rewatching as needed, etc. Also notice all of our videos are on YouTube because YouTube has a much better closed captioning system than the Canvas's in-house method. And I think that's important, not just for any hearing impaired students, but also it just makes things a lot easier for taking notes. So lectures replace in-class lectures, which means you should be doing things like taking notes to the degree you would in a normal lecture setting. And so, yeah, just click on the closed captioning, get ready to pause when necessary, and there you are. So my first interaction will be a lot of videos. Roughly speaking, there will generally be one on just about every subject. Second of all, there's this important Ask Your Instructor forum. I'll say a little more about that when I start talking about the layout of the course. But third of all, and don't forget this one, grading. Many of my grades, if I'm not posting an answer key online, your grades will include comments as to what you did well, what you should seek to improve, etc. And so just make very sure that A, you know how to access those grading comments in Canvas, but then B, just make sure you're attentively watching those. Next interaction, I do post occasional announcements. I try very hard to respect your inbox, and so I won't flood you with multiple announcements per week. They're usually reserved to set up a unit or to talk about an exam coming up, or to if there's any sort of official change in grade policy. Say I threw a question out of an exam and curved it. It's there. That's what the class announcements are for. So if you're hesitant to subscribe to your class announcements because you have some professors who just blast your inbox, I'm not one of those. And there's also weekly exercises in this course, as you'll find out. All of those exercises run through the discussion boards. So I will ask you to do something in the discussion board that's related to the material. It is graded, of course. There is interaction with your peers, as will be described in the individual item descriptions. But I will also sometimes take the opportunity to step in, maybe clear up some common misunderstandings or mistakes. When the class is running well, I like to kind of sit back a little and let you and your classmates hash things out. But if you do see me posting in there, you want to pay attention to it, especially, again, because there's a corrective element. I want to make sure you get things right before the exam. And so those are all ways that I'll be interacting with you in the course. Beyond that, though, the big one is office hours. So if you're relatively new to college, I want to say a few things about office hours. One, office hours is your time, not mine. So don't ever be apologetic about coming to office hours. If you need the help, get it. Two, this is an online course, which means, well, it's true in higher education generally, but especially in online courses, you need to always kind of stop and think about where you are and how you are with the material. And generally speaking, there's where your preparation does get you and where your preparation should get you. If those two don't match, that's a great reason to do office hours. By an astonishing lack of coincidence, the very first item in the syllabus is about contact information for office hours. It's all by appointment and remote. Obviously, it's a remote course. Pardon me. But use it if you need it. The instructions for setting up an office hours are not supposed to be scary. They're supposed to be efficient. So if you look at the instructions right at the top of your syllabus, you send me an email with those 5 things. I just reply with your appointment, day, time, and invite. So that's what it's there for. But use them as needed. So those are interactions with me. The second thing I want to say is about the course generally and what the grades are. Just kind of, this is all in the syllabus, of course. The syllabus is assigned reading. Everything is in the syllabus. Read it carefully. But I know there's a lot of information there, so I'm just going to draw your attention to a few of the highlights. One, this is an exam-based course. We will have 4 exams, 1 each unit. They're broadly non-cumulative, but you kind of need to know some key concepts to go from one to the other. That's 80% of your grade. The rest is the exercises already mentioned. Every week there's exercises, and these are going to help you in a few ways. So first of all, let me dispel an improper posture, a myth in academia. Professors don't like grading. It's about the worst part of our job, generally speaking, which means if we are giving you an assignment that is graded, it's because it helps your education in some way. And so what these exercises are doing, they're letting you, first of all, walk before you run. They're letting you start making sure you have a grasp and can perform the type of exercises and skills we're developing before you get to the exam, and it counts for a lot more stricter grading requirements. 2, and more generally, any course in philosophy and critical thinking tests understanding, not memorization. And so being forced to do rather than just say is going to be important to make sure you're grasping these key components and understanding. And of course, this is a classroom setting, so you should be helping each other with your classmates. And you will notice that a lot of the exercises have required interaction with classmates. But remember, any college course, you get out of it what you put in. So if you want to do the minimum and make the grade, I can't stop you. But if you come together as a class and help each other and do extra, it'll be a more meaningful and rich experience for everyone. So that's the general idea behind the weekly exercises. But let me add a second thing. 2, all of the exams in this course are open note. They're take-home exams. They are timed, so of course you still need to do the memorization to make sure. Sorry, not the memorization, the practice, so that you can do these things quickly and accurately. But in general, because you can access any resource you want while you're taking the exams, these old exercises are great for, say, doing review for the exam, looking at some of the key things we did each week, seeing where I might have stepped in and drew attention to some standard pitfalls. And so all of that information is going to stay there for you. So make very sure you are monitoring the weekly exercises for that reason as well. Having said that, they are graded a little easier than exams, and it's a lot easier to get partial credit. And I dropped the lowest. So it's kind of supposed to be a good, coach pitch kind of me trying to help you before the exams, which might be a little more difficult. Having said that, exams are nothing to panic about. Closer time, I'll post extensive announcements about expected formats and things like that. But very roughly speaking, the first 2 units of the course are largely exercise-based. You need to learn to do certain types of exercise, recognize certain types of mistake, recognize what type of inference is going on. Whereas the second half of the course, it tends to be a little more skill developing, and you might have more short answer types there. But again, this is nothing you need to worry about on day 1, just giving you a very far down the road look. We will have specific posts, announcements and posts about the exams closer time. So in general, though, it's an introductory course. If you go in with the right kind of mindset and you put forth the right kind of effort, there's nothing to be scared of. So that's in terms of the actual course. Be aware that there are some ways you can kind of sabotage your grade here. So first of all the exercises done through the discussion board must adhere to the rules of web etiquette and must be polite, respectful, etc. There's a document about what's expected on that. But in general, don't say something you wouldn't say in a classroom. Don't say something that you wouldn't say to your classmate sitting next to you with the professor standing there listening. But also be a little more careful than that, because the other thing that can happen is, because these are written, you lose things like tone of voice and facial expressions. So also think a little bit in terms of how it might be misread. So that's thing 1. So my policy on that: if you post offensive things that become a problem, or disrespectful things that become a problem, it is removed from that week and you don't get the credit for it. But just in general, act like adults. And hopefully this is a much ado about nothing, because the students at Lorain County have been great so far. I have no complaints. Second thing is the plagiarism policy. So you have opportunities to plagiarize. If this is you're new to college, remember, plagiarism is presenting someone else's words or ideas as yours. So if you're having trouble with one of the weekly exercises and you go, say, to the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy for some assistance, and you get assistance there and you write your response, well, if you cite your use of Internet Encyclopedia, that's great. That's called research. We love research in college. You're never going to get in trouble for doing research. But if you don't cite it, then by omission, you're claiming all those ideas are yours, and they're not, which means you're stealing intellectual property. And so when in doubt, cite. and it's open book, open note anyway. I'm assuming that you can, if you want to, use external websites for assistance. And so I'm not telling you not to, which means if you do, just cite it. Now, you shouldn't need extra assistance. Everything in the course is self-contained, but if, just be aware of that. Second of all, be aware that collusion on exams is forbidden, and that is also academic dishonesty, and that will get you an F for the course. So watch out on that. But barring those two, put in the right effort, you'll see the grade. If you're struggling grade-wise, great reason for office hours. So that's about what I wanted to say about the syllabus. Let's talk about the course, the actual course on Canvas and what you could see there. The very first folder, hopefully you found that because that's where this video is, has the important course documents you should look at day one going forward. So obviously the syllabus is important. It lays out what I'm expecting from you and what you could expect from me, and it's binding. So keep an eye out for that. Last page of the syllabus tells you the schedule. Those deadlines are firm. If a deadline is changed, it will be announced through the announcements feature. Otherwise, assume we are on track. And for your convenience, just so you don't have to sift through the syllabus every day, I've just attached just the schedule as well. So just don't be surprised by due dates. Big due dates, I always recommend people put them in their Canvas calendars, phone calendars, etc. But then there's a couple of other important documents there too. So I already mentioned the netiquette. So how I expect you to comport yourself in terms of interacting on discussion boards. Pay attention to that. And another important document there's a whole document on succeeding in the course. Talks about some approaches to exams, helpful and unhelpful mindsets, etc. I always recommend people read that over once at the beginning of the semester and at least once before the first exam is usually a good idea. So those are the kinds of documents that are there. The next subfolder has your assigned readings for the course. So there are 2 required textbooks for this class. They are required. Having said that, they're free online. So you don't have to pay anything for the course, but you do have to do the readings, etc. You do have to be able to access it. So that folder includes the links. So if you just want to go see it yourself, so say you're doing course stuff on your phone and you don't have a downloaded copy of the book, well, that's fine. You can still access it. But also that I included the files there too, if you just want to download them on the first day of the semester and then you have them whether you have shaky internet or not. More generally, for this course, you need to be able to access reliable internet. You need to be able to open Word documents and PDF documents. So if you can't meet those requirements, then you need to either fix things or take a different version of the course. You also obviously need to be able to watch course videos. So make sure you can do all those things and you'll be fine. All right. After all of those are the actual unit modules. There's 4 units in the course, 1 module per unit. The first 2 units are a little longer. So unit 1 is 3 weeks, unit 2 is 3 weeks, and then units 3 and 4 are both 2 weeks. So within the module folders, you should, roughly speaking, go in order. You'll find a web page that just tells you what the assigned reading is. Even though that's also on the syllabus schedule, you don't have to look at the syllabus all the time if you just follow the order of the modules. But there are, in addition to the readings, there'll be generally lecture videos just about always. And one thing about the lecture videos, I don't want to sound lazy, but I lecture extemporaneously. And so if I give a good lecture and I say, yeah, that's a good lecture, I want to keep that video. But then I'll use it for a couple of different modalities of courses. So I might have a video that might reference a few things that are not relevant to this course, like a participation grade or recitations. So the blended version of this course. We still meet synchronously once in a while. We call it recitation. So anyway, if you catch something like that on a course video, you're not missing anything. I had to sit there and think to myself, do I want to shoot another version of this video where I don't mention recitations? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But just it's not out of laziness. It's like one of those, yeah, I like that version of the video, and trying to reproduce it word verbatim, you just lose, you're just going to fail. So anyway, if you hear things like that, don't worry. Also, please let me know if any link is broken in the course right away. A good place to do that is the Ask Your Instructor forum. I guess I didn't talk about that yet. The last item in the first module is Ask Your Instructor forum. So first module is for all the stuff that transcends units and is not about specific course content. If you have questions about the course, say you found a bum link, or you want to know about an exam format, or a question about syllabus policies, that's what Ask Your Instructor is for. So first of all, it's a public forum. So if you have questions about grade stuff, for instance, or exam performance, email me directly or through Canvas. But if you want to say, hey, can you tell me more about the exam 2 format, you want to post that, you could email me directly, but I ask you to post that in the Ask Your Instructor forum, because then all your classmates get to benefit from my answer as well. So that's what the Ask Your Instructor forum is. Apologies, I should have said that a while ago. So in the actual unit modules, so starting with module 3, that's everything in the module 3 is unit 1 specific, and it goes in order. So you'll find a page telling you what to read. You'll find a lecture video for after you have read it. So remember, these lectures are condensed. They're assuming you've already done college level reading of the assigned reading. They're assuming you've attended to it and tried to understand it best you can. And the lectures start on the assumption that you've done that. It's really hard to get away with just watching the lectures without the readings. But anyway, after that, kind of depends on what the unit's doing. I already mentioned units 1 and 2 are a little more exercise-based, so you might find handouts that have additional practice exercises on them with some explanatory answers, for instance. Just general handouts or definitions sheets. If I don't tell you what to do with them, they're just for your benefit, which means use them if you want to, don't use them if you want to, but you have them if you want them. Especially if I give something as a Word document, it's so you can download it and type notes into it if you want. So for instance, Unit 1 has a document called Argument Summary. It just lists all these definitions for all these logic terms, just so you know you have it. But then there's also some practice exercises, practicing some of the skills we develop through the reading and the videos. So anyway, after other than the standard stuff, whatever's in there is a little unit specific. It might be a bit of a mixed bag, but it goes in order. If it's required, I'll tell you it's required. Otherwise, assume it's not. And then lastly, on exam day, the last item in the module will be the exam. So it's not there now, but on exam day, your Unit 1 exam will appear right there at the bottom. Now, the review sheet, though, is already posted. Why? Because some students like to have that review sheet in front of them so they know what's expected before they start doing the readings and the exercises. So pretty straightforward in terms of the setup for the course. I opted for blunt instead of pretty. I'd much rather students know exactly what they're supposed to do rather than having a really nice looking one and then having to search for everything. So it's just a list. You just go in order, but it's sorted into modules. And again, if it's not labeled as do something with it, then it's just there for your benefit. Use it if you want, don't use it if you want. So that's what's there in the course. If you have questions about that or anything, obviously I'm here. If you have questions about course materials, please post them in, if you have questions about course materials that are not unit specific, post in the Ask Your Instructor. If you have questions about the syllabus, late policies, anything like that, where to find stuff, Ask Your Instructor form. And it's not a bad idea to subscribe to that forum, because if somebody does ask a question there, you might want to answer it. But what happens if you have a question about the material? Say you don't really understand the difference between uh, an argument from analogy and a generalization. We'll get into that, don't worry. Those questions, you are welcome to include and post those in the weekly exercise forums. Just when you do it, start a new thread. So you'll have your own thread that you do your weekly exercises in. I might not necessarily read those as quickly. And so start a new thread, even if you already have one, and you could just write a question there and I'll post the answer in the discussion forum. That's the easiest way to do it. And then once more, that answer is there for you when you're preparing for the exam, and it's there to benefit all your classmates. And so questions that are unit specific, just post them in the relevant week, and we'll go from there. Otherwise, I look forward to getting to know you at least virtually over the next 10 weeks. And please remember, I'm always here to help. And here's to a successful course.